Rachel TwoTeeth-Pichardo is a multimedia artist with ledger art and Native American flute as her primary passions. She's enrolled in the member of the Little Shell Chippewa Nation and developed her passion for art and beadwork at a young age, with her grandma at her elbow mentoring her creative endeavors. Currently, creating ledger art is her main focus, which she uses to navigate her own Indigenous identity and her struggles in the present day. Rachel has exhibited her ledger art at the Holter Museum of Art, Helena College, and was featured in the Life magazine and in Dreams exhibition at the Myrna Loy Jailhouse Gallery. In addition to showcasing, she has also commissioned designs for WIC Montana, the Helena Indian Alliance, and the Montana Community Foundation. This year, she was featured artisan and at the Tribal Heritage Center in Yellowstone National Park. Awesome. In her free time, she eagerly begins a new project before finishing the current one. I have the same affliction.
Oh yeah.
Joe and Joe Pichardo is an educator and traditional games instructor. He has over 10 years of experience playing and teaching Native American traditional games and sports. As a Title VI academic coach and IEFA outreach coordinator, he visits classrooms year-round and introduces the cultural significance of play for Indigenous people of North America and Helena. As a descendant of the Blackfeet, Ojibwe, and Cree nations, he relishes the opportunity to learn and teach his culture and hopes to inspire his students to do the same. We are so thrilled to have both of you here, and I would love to turn it over to you guys and share with us about your practices.
You got it. Thank you for the intro. And, yeah, thank you guys for giving us this platform and to be able to kind of share these things we got going on. Rachel's gonna be first, so I'm gonna fade into the spirit world back here, but I'll be off to the side. So yeah, so thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Let's see if we can work through this. All right, so this is just an overview. We're doing separate parts. So I'm gonna do part one. Joe will do part two. So for future reference, when this gets posted to YouTube, you can click through. So again, Rachel TwoTeeth-Pichardo. I am Chippewa, Cree, Pondere, and Kootenai. I'm enrolled Little Shell Chippewa. I wanted to add a photo of me, Joe, and our daughters. We have Evelise, who is 3, and Pretty Sky, who is currently 1. So we have our hands full. Yeah, and trying to get art done it's been a battle some days. And so with that, with my art, I want to start off on my main inspiration and my main influence. And when you go to like my shows or you hear me talk a lot, I talk about my grandma. And it's nice to finally be able to show everybody like this is her. This is put a face to the name I've been saying and a lot of the inspiration behind it. So her name is Sharon Ann Matt Tooteeth. She is Pondere and Kootenai, enrolled with the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribe. So I want to give a little bit of background about my grandma. She, at a young age, I want to say around 5, was put in boarding schools. So from the age of 5 to about 16, she's just been placed in these boarding schools around the United States, and she really didn't know anything about her culture. It wasn't until she was 16 she met my grandpa. His name is Robert Tooteeth, and he was Chippewa Cree from Rocky Boy, and they ended up running away together and getting married. And so when my grandma ran away though and married him, she didn't know anything about like her culture, like being native whatsoever, because in boarding school it was kind of taken out of her. So her skills were pretty much just to read and write and integrate her into the Western world and, you know, pretty much cut her roots, cut her ties. So she was kind of able to get some of that back. So with my grandma being Pondere and Kootenai, we actually lost any type of knowledge that we have for that tribe, specifically for my family anyway. So my grandma, when she does her beadwork and her artwork, she's actually learning from her mother-in-law, who is full Cree and Chippewa. So she's taking from those styles. And so she really adapted the tribes Chippewa and Cree because that's what her kids were too. And she really took it off with like her beadwork and um, yeah, her work going forward. So yes, I'm just excited to finally show her to everybody, and we're gonna keep moving forward. So with my grandma teaching me beadwork, I want to give the next slide. Uh, my grandma's beadwork versus my beadwork. Hers is on the left, and like her horse is just amazing. And mine, on the other hand, I was like, man, I was really trying to show her up this day too. And I was only 9 years old when she taught me how to bead. Um, and so beading was kind of like the first like art craft that I did besides like just drawing in school. But this is like the one that really kind of like honed in like teaching like patience and wanting to be a part of my culture. And so I got to give a lot of thanks to my grandma for that. Um, this is the beadwork that um, I've done throughout the years. So recently, so I have upgraded. I have leveled up. And the cool thing about like beadwork too is that we make a lot of things, a lot of I want to say that people who don't engage with a lot of native people, they just think of like earrings being made or, maybe some necklaces. But I mean, we bead all types of things. As you can see, we make pop sockets. My most recent one are the graduation caps that I have in the middle. Made those for my niece and nephew who just graduated high school this year. My favorite is making keychains and yeah, also doing like flat stitch. But beadwork, I I like to do it, but honestly, I'm really slow at it. And so a lot of the times when I bead, it's just given as a gift. Um, and so I know a lot of people kind of ask like, "Hey, how come you don't sell it?" And it's just like, I'm not fast enough. And honestly, every single image that you see here has been gifted away to someone else. So my beadwork, I like to kind of represent, but it's not one of those mediums that I felt like I could share with the community yet. And so going off into that, I really struggled with like, finding my medium. Growing up, everybody was like, you need to be an artist. You got to be an artist. Like, you're so amazing. Like, how come you're not putting yourself out there or going to school? And I was just like, I've never found what I really liked. I've definitely explored it. And so with these images that I have here, they were done um, about like maybe 10 years ago around that area. I did a charcoal drawing of my niece Seneca. So the one I did is actually on the left side. Um, I messed around with watercolor, which is the men's fancy dancer. So that I didn't actually create the original design of it. I was just copying it and to also play with watercolor to see if I can do it. And then I also made a fancy shawl dancer in colored pencil, which that one also helped me to realize like I absolutely love colored pencil. Um, and then going off with still finding my medium, I've tried out painting. And so, I mean, I do still paint. The most recent one is Break the Chains, Be the Change. I entered for the Montana Meth Project last year in 2023. So this one's still outside of the Helena Indian Alliance. It's pretty big. It's 6 feet by 12 feet, and couldn't have got it done without Joe over here helping me. It was large, like my biggest painting I've ever done, and he had to make the frame for me. I think I added a few gray hairs to his head. um, and then I also just tried like abstract painting with acrylic. I do also have like painting on the like feather, and I'm just trying to see if that is like what I enjoyed, which I do, but it's still not quite there yet. Sewing, I also do some sewing work. I On the left side there, I made a mother and daughter ribbon skirt for me and my daughter Evelise, and then my old style jingle dress, and then my dancing purse that I made for Evelise. So that one is mixed media. It has cloth, ribbon, buckskin on it. Uh, we're kind of like dabbling into printmaking. Joe and I are. Um, I think he's more skilled at it than I am. I don't think that that's my medium, but I tried, definitely tried. I put it out there. Um, Definitely don't want to give up on that, but um, it wasn't quite it either. And so I'm all over the place on my projects, and it wasn't until, just within like the last few years that uh, I feel like I found it through ledger art. And so I want to move on to that on so what is ledger art is the question that I always get for people. Um, and so like how I interpret it and like how I've read like what ledger art is, um, it's like when indigenous people were getting incarcerated, especially like men, they were put in jails, and so they were locked down. Like this was new to them, but they were still able to find like papers and pens. And so they were finding, yeah, whatever paper that they could find, and they were drawing their stories that they had, so that they were recounting um battles or important like ceremony that they had in their life or important time in their life that they didn't want to forget, because like our people are um storytellers, like oral storytellers. We didn't have written language at the time. And so I want to say like this is like the first way that we can kind of like document um like kind of visual storytelling kind of for us. And so going off with ledger art there, um I'm trying to say um so yeah, hold on, let me go back. And so with ledger art going out throughout the years, there are certain artists that have like brought it back like in the 50s and stuff. And so artists were actually like drawing on top of treaties, and it was kind of like a way to bring back like the older style and tell stories, but then it became kind of like, like, hey, heck you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, resistance. And so now a lot of artists who do ledger art, they do it over paper that is like from the 1800s or 1900s that have like really nice handwriting. And so my actual first ledger art that I did is there in the corner. It was for MMIW, so Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women. It's colored pencil and ink on ledger paper from the 1800s. And instantly from there, I knew I loved ledger art. I loved how simple the line work was, or like how simple like the story was, and yet it was still uh powerful. Um, but like my issue, why I didn't feel like I could be a ledger artist, is because I didn't know where I was going to get the paper from, like the 1800s or 1900s, and copying other like current like indigenous artists and what they're doing. So it actually wasn't until around like 2019 I found my grandma's ledger papers from when she had a store here in Helena, Montana. And so I believe this one is from, I want to say 91, 92. And why this is so important for me is, like I said, my grandma's been my main influence and my inspiration. Well, she unfortunately passed away in 2017. And so I was just kind of feeling lost on where I was and just in life in general. And people still telling me, like, hey, you need to be an artist. But I didn't know what exactly that looked like. But after going through like some of the paperwork that we found, like we found her ledgers of, stuff that she sold at her stores. So it is my grandma's handwriting. And, it's her selling her earrings and um, just other crafts, everything else that she did. And I felt like this was my way to still be able to um, craft with my grandma and still be connected. And so, and do the style that I really wanted. So to be able to do storytelling in more of like a simpler form, and then also uh, have like kind of deeper meaning to it too. And um, yeah, just everything about it, I really um, just enjoyed. And so from going on from there, I did this one in 2019, but I lost the papers. I think we moved. I think me and Joe moved, and I couldn't find the papers for a long time. But then a few years back, I ended up finding them again, and I was just so excited all over again. And I was like, I'm gonna be a ledger artist now, um, and I'm still gonna be able to craft with my grandma. And so um, it's just been kind of like taking off, and I've just really loved creating in this way. As uh, we have on like the what is it, the presentation, like the online one, we have the Thunderbird, and so I just want to give a background or like the story behind the Thunderbird. This one was showcased at the Myrna Loy and was actually purchased by let me say a customer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah, appreciator, I guess. And so the meaning behind this one is that my indigenous name is Pieso Squel. I hope I said that right, and it's a Thunderbird woman. And so I was really thinking about like the Thunderbird, and I was like, you know, lightning, it hits, it's scorches the earth, it burns it. But with this piece, like I didn't want my Thunderbird and how I feel to be like that. So with this one, I also had with wherever your lightning strikes, let there be growth. And so, you know, wherever, you know, you might like scorch the earth, you know, there's still beauty that can be grown from there. And so that's why you see the flowers at the end of the lightning there. Moving on to the one in the middle, so Grandmother Moon. Inspiration behind this one was um, you know, as a kid and always being at my grandma's house, some of the best times that we had was at, um, we'd end up heading over there at like 10 at night and we'd have fires with like my family and stuff. And instead of like, for the most part, for myself being around the fire, I was always um, looking at the moon. And so I was just also doing research recently on just like how much like the moon affects um, the cycles of women and how we're more on the moon cycle. It changes every like 28 days, and that's kind of like how our period is too. And then just also have the moon affects the water and just how powerful it is. So I really want to do a ledger piece on giving thanks to that. And then also still kind of like sticking to like my indigenous themes. Um, and then the one on the right, Campfire Stories, is actually being showcased right now through Montana Book Mobile, which I hope I said that right. So it was going like through the schools, and they were students were able to look at it, and they were supposed to ask a question with the piece. And so going back to like Grandmother Moon, like how they're kind of connected was me just being around the like campfire and just like how through centuries, it doesn't matter like if you're indigenous or wherever you're from, like a lot of our stories were told around the fire. And so the question that I asked for the kids is, what story would you tell around the campfire? You know, kind of to bring your people together. So, and then um, going forward. So these two are actually owned by WIC, and I wanted to showcase these ones because they have to do with people and like why I draw my people this way too. And so we'll start off with like the one with the breast pump. Um, so why I leave the faces off is because I've seen another, I forgot what artist, but they were saying that um I believe like it might have been another ledger artist, but why like you leave like the face blank is so that you can see yourself in it or see somebody that you know in it. And I thought that that was just, you know, really powerful. So I like to do that because once you put a face on it, it becomes that character, something like recognizable, such as like example I give is SpongeBob. You know, as soon as you see that face, it's like you already know it's that character alone. And so doing artwork this way, it's nice to, or I hope that people can, you know, see themselves in it. And um, one thing with my artwork too is I do like to kind of keep like the indigenous theme, but I don't have so much like background to like the old knowledge. I feel like a lot of that has been lost. I am urban, And so I'm kind of just taking from my experiences and what I've done. And so um, like myself having to use a breast pump and also um, nurse my daughter too. And then going off of that with berry picking, and I'm hoping that it's okay that I showcase this one yet. WIC actually hasn't shown this one yet. It's fairly new. Um, but the reason why I have it like this is because ideally I was going back and forth on how I wanted to present this for berry picking. Because a lot of ledger art has to do with like the old traditions, like wearing old regalia and hair in braids. And um, ideally, yes, I would love to, grow like strawberries and blueberries and be out there picking it with my daughter, but that's not um, kind of realistic for us, or it can be, but that's not how I do it now. So berry picking is actually like going to the store and being able to get blueberries and blackberries and raspberries. And a lot of the time we think that that's a bad thing, but I mean, it's really not. And it's something that like I'm grateful for, that we're able to still have these fruits throughout. And so, yeah, I do have different themes with my uh, ledger art. And let me see what the next one is. And moving forward, I'm going into digital. So ledger art has been my favorite. I think it'll probably always have like a special place in my heart, but I am moving towards the digital world. Um, Even the background that we did, I did create the with the flowers on the side. Um, and the Don't Pet the Fuzzy Cow will be featured in Yellowstone here in a few weeks as a sticker. We like to add humor. We like to make sure that we laugh, and just having uh you know I mean, it's unfortunate on what happens to people there, but it's like, we should know better. Don't touch these animals. um but yeah, I'm moving into the digital world, and I hopefully be merging them. And so that's kind of like what we mean by like old ways, new traditions. So it's still like honoring our roots, but also honoring ourselves and our present and what we're doing, and how we can still change and adapt, because that's what our people are known for and what we do. um, and so with that, going forward, I just want to give a like thank you to some other like inspirations that I've had. I have my mom and dad, of course, who've always been there supporting me day one. I'm also a studio artist at Omerta Arts in Helena, Montana, downtown. And I want to give a shout out to like Chris and Leah, and Joy and Nadia and the rest of the studio artists there. Like, it's just been so great to be there and to have my own space to um, like practice and being an artist and being into that setting. And then the other one is on the right side is my teacher, Seth Roby, my instructor at Helena College for unfortunately too many years than I'd like to admit. Uh, so at least like 10 years, I want to say. But the big, huge thank you for him, because he's the one that really pushed me to step out into the community and how to take those steps. Because I probably would have never done a museum or exhibited without his help, and like learning the whole art of framing and matting. Like, it's a whole different ball game. That's difficult, but then it's also, having to write about yourself and talk about yourself. And so that's one of the things I do struggle with, is having to like talk about my work or write about it. It's like my comfort is just, drawing it and hopefully like getting my message across through the artwork. But that's not how the world works, like if you want to kind of make it for um, a career too. And so yeah, my last piece in there is Bitterroot Rising. So um, the um, idea behind this was I was partnering with Prickly Pear Land Management with one of my good friends, and he was showing us the bitterroot and how they grew. So this is like the state flower of Montana, and I didn't know that they actually close up at night, but they open with the sun. And so I thought it was so beautiful, and it's only through I think May and June, but thought how much of a gift it was. So I wanted to do a ledger piece on that. And so, yeah, that wraps it up for mine. I know it was a little um, kind of quick, but I want to make sure that I get to Joe over here because he's going to be talking about like our other passions that we do, which is teaching traditional games. And he's just been so amazing at it, um, and getting a lot of experience here through his work as well. And so this is a passion that we both share, but he's better at it, better at
But
teaching it.
we're always learning. We're always kind of growing with that. And yeah, thank you, babe. Good job. Yeah. Thanks for sharing your time too. I know she, like I said, she has some stories. She can go for a while, but I'm really grateful to have this opportunity to be able to present on this platform. Like I said, treading new waters with the virtual presentations, but I'm happy to be here and get the experience. I know, I thank you to Open Air, and I know this is like mainly for artists. I think the thing was like Indigenous art, Indigenous minds. So I think I might be more like on the Indigenous minds part, but I do make some art, and there is some art aspects to the game. So hopefully I can kind of fill in that note there. Okay, so Native American traditional games and sports. This is me. I am Joe Pichardo. This is my little baby Evelise Pichardo here. We're at Glacier National Park. Just a little bit about myself. I am Blackfeet and Chippewa Cree on my mother's side. My mom, Christina, she and her family, our family, we hail from St. Mary's, Montana, right outside of Glacier. So going back up there's always like it's like going home. I was never raised up there. I'm from Arizona originally, so to be able to do that after not having that in my childhood, it's been a just like the games, like another opportunity to reconnect with my identity. And I'm also a first generation Mexican American. My dad is from Zacatecas, Mexico. So I was raised kind of disconnected from both of these cultures. Growing up, when I lived in Arizona as a child, I didn't really have access to those kind of things. I wasn't raised with my dad, and there wasn't really any Blackfeet or Chippewa Cree culture down there. I was raised next to the San Carlos Apache Reservation, so like as far as diversity and everything, I had that. When I moved to Helena, it was a bit of a culture shock, and I got to be a little more conscious of, you know, um, the absence of my culture. So, but with the games, I kind of got to, reconnect with that. And so, for those of you who aren't familiar, Native American traditional games and sports are games that were played on this continent for millennia. And when I teach in the classroom, like in that picture there, I always try to connect with my students, or make connections for them, or help them connect things. So I tell them, you can think about the games as education. So 200 plus years ago, we needed a different set of skills to be able to pass on our culture, to be able to be good to each other, good relatives, and also to survive. And so you can, like if this was like the third graders, I'd be like, so just like in third grade, you're preparing yourselves all year round to be fourth graders, and then so on and so forth. We're trying to make you successful as an adult. And so some of the games, they have a wide variety of skills. All of the outside games are usually like more physical, agility, balance, coordination, um, all those really fun, great things. The other games that we play in kind of more seasonally, they're played in the winter. They teach skills and things like storytelling abilities, or being able to make intuitive choices, using your observation, not just to, fill your eyes with beautiful things, but also to look at your environment, like a book, to read your environment, to look at things, to understand them. So a lot of different games, a lot of different skills. Um, and I can kind of get into that a little later. My first introduction, though, to Native American traditional games was when I was in high school, and I had a really tough time just throughout school here when I moved from Arizona. Like I said, it was a huge disconnect from my culture, and just kind of from like anything I can kind of latch on, that was like a positive identity. And so I think it was like my 10th grade summer where one of our knowledge keepers here in Helena, Jeremy Red Eagle, shout out to him. He used to organize double ball games, I think on the weekends. And so double ball, you can kind of think of that as like the OG lacrosse, where we don't have the nets, the sticks with the nets. We just have the stick and like a double ball. Um, and so I remember going to those games with my mom, and she would drag me and my brothers along, and you know, it was kind of like, all right, mom, like whatever, let's do this, like let's get it out the way. But it ended up turning into something I really loved and I really look forward to, not only because you know the game itself was super fun, and there was a lot of history to it, but also because I got to meet and be with people of, you know, my similar background, my similar struggles, similar barriers, and you know, we got to uplift each other. And so just having that little community there was awesome. And as a side note, and probably the best thing I got from playing these games was I met Rachel, like one of my first, yeah, I met my wife. Disclaimer though, you might not meet your significant other playing these games. I lucked out somehow, but she was like one of the team captains. She happened to get picked, and she was just sizing all of us up, and she happened, you know, to think that
He looked fast and he was.
yeah,
He did good.
I looked
He
like a
didn't
good athlete.
disappoint.
Yeah,
And it's funny because it's an actual taught as a divorce game for the Sioux.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
So
the game we met playing is a divorce game for the Sioux, and so it's yeah, it's this game has been really significant throughout my life. All the
yeah.
games in general. So I've been like really just really appreciative and just so much gratitude for, you know, our ancestors, those who played this 200 years ago, but also those who revived these games from like the boarding school era when all these were lost. There were, you know, that was still like even like 20 years ago, people were doing the work to record these games and bring them back to our communities. And so I think there's a huge reason why they're still here, because you know, after being kind of culturally gutted, all that is left is, you know, it's probably going to be the strongest things, and that's going to be the bedrock to build off of. So that's how I kind of feel about these games. So after playing the games with Jeremy and kind of establishing, you know, my in group, I had all my friends. I made playing these games. Fast forward maybe like 5 or 6 years, and I was, you know, just in my 20s, just trying to figure out what to do, going to school. One of my other good friends, Duran Cafaro, shout out to him, he was going to a ITGS clinic, and ITGS is the acronym for International Traditional Game Society. They do really great work out of Great Falls, Montana, with Deanna Leader as kind of the main coordinator there. But he was going to get his certification, or he was going to go teach at a ranger station over in Yellowstone. And he just asked me and Rachel if like, hey, do you guys want to come along for this? And, you know, you guys can get trained up in the games. And just on a whim, we packed up our stuff and we spent, you know, a weekend over there in Yellowstone, staying in the cabins. And we were there as participants, but Deanna Leader and a lot of the other elders there, they threw us right in to actually teach these games that we had just learned. So it was really kind of the best way, I think. And looking back, it was really the best way to kind of learn these things and have ownership of them, because you know they are ours. You know, it's a part of our culture. So it was really great to do that and just see the impact that these games have on these adults, because we first taught adults who were, you know, from 20 to elders, and they love these games, they love this knowledge, and it really kind of instilled that value for these games in me. And so again, the games are a lot of different things, and even the values and skills, they're a part of every time I teach these games, every time I have a demonstration. I make sure that it's more than just like a spectacle. Like I'm just playing this game that you can play, or like a Monopoly game, or like a game of basketball. Nothing wrong with those things, but with traditional games, they have so much history, they have so much context, so much everything, you know. And I love to give that backstory. I love to tell the stories to again make those connections, and it really, I think it really makes an impact with the students as well. And so my last bullet there is beyond games slash ceremony, is to kind of emphasize that, you know, even that word games and sports, even those words games and sports, that kind of lessens the significance of these activities a little bit, because like historically some of these things were more than just recreation. Some of these, yes, were played just to have fun, you know, to you know, experience the joy of moving your body. But some of these things were coming of age ceremonies. Some of these were rites of passage. Some of these activities were, even courting ceremonies, and even healing ceremonies. So there is still like a like just like this level of significance to them that I don't get to teach a lot when I'm in the classroom, which is kind of understandable. Like if I showed up with sticks and rocks at elementary and I'm like, I'm here to do some ceremonies and rituals, they probably like kick me out, right? But I sneak that in there still, you know, when I teach these games, to tell them like there is like these spiritual aspects, because you know we were spiritual people, like a lot of what we did. And even when you go to an ITGS clinic, a lot of what you learn there is kind of like a lot of cultural things like reciprocity. When we go and harvest our willows to make our double ball kits, you know, we're cutting just what we need, but before we do that, even we'll stop and we'll pray, we'll smudge up, we'll get some tobacco, we'll put it on the ground, you know, and we'll say thanks for these things. And when we're done with them, we'll put them back where, you know, kind of where we found them, back in nature. So there's a lot of values and skills just in kind of preparing up to that point of playing the game. I don't have that much time when I visit the classroom, so I just get to kind of, you know, mention those things and try to sneak them in there in other ways. So um, yeah, so this is me kind of doing that part of my job. So I am a Title VI Indian Ed academic coach. So if you're not familiar with Title VI, it is a support system within high schools to kind of help, well, in all levels of school, I guess, from elementary to high school. We have Title VI Indian Ed coaches to give our Native students an extra support. So that can be academic, or pretty much just whatever we need to give them for them to be successful and for them to achieve. So like with my students, my classroom, these are some of my students here in the picture helping set up the teepee at our school here at Capitol High. But you know, sometimes just like teachers, you know, it's not all academic. It really can be. It'd be too hard. You know, sometimes these kids have a really bad day, and I think just having a room, a space where they can kind of just chill out and just have a room that kind of represents who they are. Because in my room, it's like we got all the native flags. You know, we have we're starting to introduce things like smudge more often, and then we have the games as well. So we're starting to try to just uh, make our culture not so much of like a special event, but just like an integrate it into every day. And so again, with urban native youth, it is also hard to find something to kind of give all of our students that they can relate with and that they can have, like, you know, like culturally. And there are a few things already, like powwow and even like drumming and singing. Those kind of things are all like really great to have, but as far as applying them in classrooms, it requires a lot, you know. Even making regalia, like what I've learned with Rachel, is that it takes a lot of time, and sometimes it takes a lot of money to purchase those materials. So we're always looking for cultural anchors, things that all of our students can use across tribes, across bands, whatever it is. And so we've had a lot of great luck with things like setting up a teepee. Like, hey, even if your tribe didn't do this, this is a good point for you to bring back to your elder, your grandma, your grandpa, and ask them, hey, what was our traditional shelter? You know, what did that look like? What was our traditional home? So those are some of my students there at Capitol High School representing. Other things that we do for the Title VI program. This is my class here with some of my students. We brought in mine and Rachel's auntie, Roberta Two-Teeth, and she taught our kids how to make moccasins. And so we partnered with Youth Connections. They paid for her time. As she should be paid. It's a really great skill to have. And so these are just some of my students at it. Again, with Youth Connections, we brought in some knowledge keepers to help us make ribbon skirts and ribbon shirts. We brought in sewing machines, which I was kind of nervous for my students because like I don't know how to use a sewing machine too well, but just kind of through this whole like 4-month process of making these things, like my room was like constantly just like da 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 da. Like my students loved it, and my student right there in the black shirt, closest kind of to us, she actually made a skirt, a shirt, like 2 bags. She was making like merch, and she happened to love it. So I'm really happy when they can find anything to connect with. But with this certain thing too, they really loved it, and I was really proud of them.
Yeah, and to add on to that, like, to what kind of hooked him too was just him starting to play the game, something so simple, like just with the 3 sticks and a rock, and then they were just like kind of going from there, like what else can we do culturally? What else can we learn?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so the games are something like Rachel said, like just looking at them, and I tell my elementary students too, I'll lay everything out and I'm like, what do you see? And it's like, well, it's a lot of sticks, it's a lot of rocks. Some of the sticks are decorated, some of the rocks are decorated. And I ask them, well, why is that? And it's just like, well, I don't know why, Joe. It's just like, well, usually people use whatever resources are around them just to kind of fulfill their needs. So the great thing about these games, though, like it's just like you can play them wherever you go, and that's what I encourage my students to do. So games as simple as Rock and Fist, which you can kind of see in this first image here of that little girl. She's hiding that stone in one of her hands, and the guesser is going to try to guess by using her intuition, right? Tapping into those that quiet everything, quiet your self doubt, quiet all that, and you're gonna try to just almost like meditate on it. And I'm gonna make a choice, like that 50-50 chance. And then you just choose. So let's just say this hand. So if I guess wrong, which I did, then Rachel wins a point because she hid it from me. And so on and so forth. The game is back and forth, and whoever gets the 3 points is the winner. Again, like a lot of skills, a lot of different kind of like stories. I kind of add in there, but this is one that's really easy to play. And so all I keep a set on my desk at my at work, and in between classes, or even yeah, or yeah, and even to make our kits, you have to be able to have other skills as well. So it all kind of builds up to stuff. But I'll keep a set of Rock and Fist on my desk, and whenever like my students are like trying to kill some time, or they're trying to just like kind of like, Joe, can I go run to the vending machine real quick? I know we're not supposed to. I'm like, yeah, if you can beat me, like, come on, like, let's play this game, and I'll hide the rock. And I think it gives them a chance too, to actually do that, to take a deep breath, check in with themselves, and kind of see what is guiding their choices. And I always tell them like, hey, it's okay, like it is a 50-50 chance, but like just like tap into that intuition a little bit. Think about that gut feeling. So I think that's yeah, one really great for accessibility.
Yeah, the other one that like I would like to add on to like play in the games too is like with Indigenous people. And like when we're in a certain space, it always seems like we're stoic and like always seen as like sacred and have to kind of fill that type of role. But when we play games, it's like we're actually like playing games. Like we're here to make uh like kids laugh, or not even kids, like even elders, or just our peers, and to actually like have a good time, like honor the games, like have you know like the respect too, but you know
Yeah,
laughter is medicine.
absolutely. Yeah. So that's what we say is part of like the ceremony aspect too. Like one of my mentors, Jay Country, told me like, hey, if you're ever at a ceremony and you don't hear laughter, you don't hear jokes, heads up, because you probably shouldn't be there. Right. So like laughter is a huge part. And I even tell students like laughter is healing, because when you're playing these games, you're not worried about the past, you're not worried about the future. You're in this kind of shared space, these shared rules, this shared reality, and you're trying to win, and you're trying to have fun. Winning and losing is a part of kind of like every culture and every games. But I tell these kids too, some of these things, they're not about winning or losing. It's just about improving your skills every time that you play. Try to get better at using your observation to pick up details. Try to get better at using your intuition. And so the accessibility tab right there, or bullet, is just to say like, these games, they can be played anywhere with very basic materials. That's one part of the accessibility. The other part is for being urban native youth, is that oftentimes we are removed from our knowledge keepers, from our elders, who kind of have a lot of like the spiritual or ceremonial knowledge that we want, that's a part of us. And so with these games, there is a lot of resources online where you could be anybody, and you can access that, and you can learn how to play the games, which is great, which is like I encourage them to do so. But what I really like, and what I really relish is, for especially teachers, non-native teachers, because they get nervous about offending and just kind of not doing things right. And I just tell them too, like, hey, this is meant for joy, this is meant for play. But if you can have a native person there to kind of give that context, give that history, then you should have that person there to just kind of honor that, right? And so these students, I encourage them to look into that history and to learn and to play. And a lot of what you learn about these games, you learn during the play. So that's
Yeah.
another great way.
And so also it's just like the game we are just playing, Rock and Fist, is Little Shell Chippewa. But then we have double ball on the I guess our right side.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
Double ball, it's like Sioux and also different tribes would play it too. And so we don't just play games that are to our tribes only. We do
Game.
Blackfeet as well,
Yeah.
Cheyenne. And so what we do see is even just like with our own like native kids, since they are urban, they find like pride in that. Like even if it's just one of the games that's their tribe or not even they're just happy to, feel like they're part of their culture
Yeah.
too. And so it is like an anchor to help them be like, you know what, this is kind of an easier way to be a part of that, not having to do like regalia or moccasins or beadwork and everything that takes hours and grandmas and aunties
Yeah.
involved. But like this is an easier way for them to finally, feel connected and we're laughing and having a good time playing them.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point too, like if when I visit a classroom, because I'm with my high schoolers most of the day from like first to fifth period to like 1:30. And then in the afternoon, sixth or seventh, if I send out my schedule, then a teacher will sign up. I'll go to an elementary class and I'll go teach. And for 2 years, I've been kind of doing that pretty steadily. And it's been like 100 kids a week for the last 2 years. So hundreds of kids, numerous classrooms. And usually when I get done at the end of my, at the end of my playing, or at the end of kind of talking, I let the kids play the games. I thank them for their time. And usually I have like 1, 2, 3, 4 kids who'll come up to me and be like, hey, I'm Native American too. And to me, it's just like, yes, like I like that. It's like go back to your elders, go back to whoever you got, grandma, grandpa, ask them about these games, ask them if your people played these things. So I really love that aspect of kind of just instilling that in them, like, this is yours too. And so on the smaller, on the other picture, there is our annual East First West double ball. We do this during the last chance powwow, and it's like not official or anything, but we have two high schools here in Helena. We have Helena High School and we have Capitol High School. So we both go to the first day of the powwow, which is called the demonstration day, where all the dancers kind of show up and they will dance for any of the elementary schools that decide to show up and just kind of see everything. But since the high schoolers are there to help, we started integrating this kind of double ball game to just kind of make that another aspect into the whole process too, because
challenge them because yeah, it's definitely rival high schools
yeah,
right there.
and there's that too. There's a
yeah.
competitive nature to it. We lost last couple of years. So.
He's training.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
yeah. I'll show some more pictures.
Yeah, so here's some more of my other tab is games for community. And so again, like my classroom perspective is like I'm seeing these kids resonate with these games, native and non-native alike. And it's a great jumping off point for whatever else they want to do, because just introducing these different kind of concepts is like, oh well, if this tribe did this, well maybe I do need to talk with my grandma and grandpa and see, hey, if my tribe did this. And I can even mention things like the different different games for different regions of the US. And it's like, oh, well, you're Potawatomi? Well, that was kind of like the Great Lakes area. I know they had some of their own regional games they could play. And so like the really great thing about the games is that, there are some that were played like all across North America, all across this continent. And there were some that were regional. So it makes them kind of dive deep into their background a little bit.
Yeah, and then going off like the classroom perspective, I have had an experience where I was dancing for my niece's preschool. And so I was in my regalia, and then one of the questions that I had was one of the girls like raised her hand and was like, "So you're a real Indian?" And I was like, I don't really care for that term. But I was like, "Yes." And she was like, "But I thought they killed the Indians years ago." And I was like, no, I'm still right here. Like I'm in front of you. Like I'm just like you. And so it's nice being able to have representation, like just in our normal clothes, because kids can't believe that natives are among us. almost
Yeah.
like make us feel like we're aliens. Like,
Yeah, and even our experiences of demonstrating these games at like Yellowstone Tribal Heritage Center. You know, a lot of people, I didn't know this. That a lot of people from all over the world go there. I was like, wow, really? Like we met people from France and like Mongolia and all these
yeah,
places. And, there was a lot of questions that were like in any other kind of like format, they would kind of be like, you would call them stupid questions, like, or like stereotype questions about,
like
our culture. But
old westerns is what we get
yeah,
labeled as. So.
but within kind of what we do, and even when I visit the classroom, we try to make it a safe space to kind of clarify things and kind of just have that mutual understanding. Because another part of the games is like, yeah, check out these values. Let's see what that teaches us. Okay, it teaches us to respect our elders. It teaches us to respect personal space. Well, hey, that sounds like something that we all kind of have. Like those values are very similar to our values as, whatever kind of American, European American, Irish, just go back into your own culture and you're gonna find similar things, right? And so I know we're kind of inching towards the time, so I'm gonna kind of just just speed it up a little bit. Right here is with my native high schoolers mentoring and teaching our elementary students at Bryant shinny ball, which shinny is like the OG hockey or OG field hockey. And so I love teaching the games. I relish that opportunity. It feels like it renews my spirit because just being in the high school, being in the office setting, it's not I feel
It's
like
soul crushing.
yeah, it is. It's not conducive to your mental health sometimes, even for my students. And so that was my experience coming back that next day and telling my students, hey, remember I told you I was going to Bryant to teach games? Well, I had a great time and the students loved it. Was where I started to realize like, I have to start incorporating. I want my kids to have that feeling of ownership and that feeling of gratitude and then being able to receive that as well. So we started developing things like this where my students can go and teach what they've learned to the young ones. So that's just one example of that. Here's just some pictures of us playing some games with the elementary students. Make the stick jump is on the left. So a game that was taught to young ones to develop hand-eye coordination. Really important if you're a warrior to protect your family, you need that. But to feed your family, right, you also need that hand-eye coordination. So I teach those kids that game. Same as hoop and arrow. And I really like this picture too because this class was so hyped to play these games and they just like wanted me to stay longer. And then the teacher wanted to take a picture, and so we all like posed with our arrows. And then when he said like, okay, ready, like cheese, like one of the students threw the arrow at him while he was taking a picture, and you can kind of see it on the far right of that arrow, like mid-air still. So like I think sometimes yeah they get a little too hyper, but I love the energy because I don't always get that with my high schoolers. This is us teaching run and scream, or this is me teaching run and scream with all of a third grade class at Fort Georgian. So sometimes the teachers don't get a memo of like, hey, only one class at a time, because if it's more than that, it's going to impact how much I can kind of dive into certain things, how much materials I need to bring. I like to keep the teaching of these games really informal because it's better for like just the learning environment. But showed up to a whole three or four third grade classes, and I was like, I got a game for you guys. We could all play together. I'm not gonna let you down. Sometimes I got to keep the kids in mind and just go for it. And then yeah, on the right, a good day at Central Elementary. And so I tell my students too, like, yo, like when I do a good job with you guys, I get like yeah, thanks, Joe. I could have asked, AI. I could have asked Alexa, she would have told me. But when I do a good job at the elementaries, like they give me hugs. So I'm just like, you guys need to step it up, right?
Yeah. He's kind of like a little celebrity here in town. Doesn't matter where we go, there are kids running up to him like, it's Mr. Joe. And
Yeah.
it's so awesome to see because, we're giving like that indigenous representation in our normal clothes and, they're still getting some culture there.
Yeah, it's been a really great experience too, being with my daughter at the parks, and then we'll see some kids, hey, Mr. Joe, what are you doing? Nothing, man, just hanging out. And so one of my last slides is kind of like my goal for these games. And these are my native students, my high schoolers. They're mentoring some other native elementary students. And so this is a mentorship that we got into practice this year, where we started visiting one of our elementaries with a bigger kind of native population. And so here they're just sitting down with them, they're connecting, building those relationships, building those connections, which is so important. And so for me and kind of my team, we want this to be permanent. We want this cycle of mentorship, you know, where the benefits go both ways, where we're learning cultural stuff to just continue on. And so this was like my kind of trial and error group right here, and they did so well. And so just like I have nothing but like, you know, hope for the future, because I know they're gonna kick it off, and it's gonna be just fine. We're gonna be just fine. And so that's it for my presentation, you guys. Again, really, I really thank you guys for the opportunity and the platform, and
And for listening to us. Yeah, thank you.
thank you for your time too, because I know you could have talked. I know you.
I'm a little nervous.
Thank you both so much. That was wonderful. Just hearing the laughter and sharedness between you is a real gift, and each of your gifts that you're sharing with the community. And thank you for sharing with us today. One of the things that struck me, I mean, Joe, you kind of started by saying, oh, maybe I'm the Indigenous mind side of things, but it's interesting to think about the arts and sports and to consider, is there overlap? What is any sharedness, and thinking about the role of like embodiment, like Rachel, when you're working on those ledger pieces, which are so powerful, particularly because it's connecting you to your grandmother. To me, there's something, I mean, that is just gave me goosebumps when you pulled those pieces out. They're just wonderful, and in particular because of that connection. And so, like, in the process of making, there's embodiment in that, and then in the activity of sports, of engaging with community through this play and calculation and using your body in space. Especially today, it feels like extra important to be doing both of these practices. So I know that everybody, there was one question that was dropped in the chat. So I just want to make sure Jennifer's question got asked. She was wondering if y'all are on the National Endowment for Humanities Speakers Bureau. Have y'all tapped into those guys at all?
No, yeah, it's not even on my radar, so that's a good
Okay.
source. Yeah, that sounds cool.
Great, great. I'll make sure to try and maybe send y'all a link to them. And then one other thing, Rachel, you may have been thinking about Aspen Decker. I know that she also doesn't do the faces with the figurative work that she does. And we had her on and talking about her practice, and that was something that came up. So you might look into her work, or that may have been maybe
Yeah,
one
I
place.
do follow her, and she is amazing.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you both so much for your time today, for sharing your gifts with us. You did great. Thank you for your courage of showing up today. It was just wonderful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you for
We
having us.
appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. All right, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll look forward to next time. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.